William Sidney Potter, an American writer, is better known by his pen name O. Henry, was a voracious reader since childhood. O. Henry was a famous short story writer born in America on September 11, 1862, in Greensboro City in North Carolina. His father, Algernon Sidney Potter, was a physician. His mother, Mary Virginia Swam, died when O. Henry was just 3 years old. He was raised by his paternal grandmother and his aunt. Henry attended school for a very short time, then clerked in an uncle's drugstore. At the age of 20, Henry went to Texas, working first on a ranch and later became a bank teller. In 1887, he married Ethel Estes and began to write freelance sketches. A few years later, he founded a humorous weekly, The Rolling Stone. When the publication failed, he became a reporter and columnist on the Houston Post. Henry worked a number of jobs, including as a ranch hand in Texas, licensed pharmacist, draftsman, bank clerk, and columnist. But the most remarkable incident in Arthur's life is when he was working as a bank clerk for the First National Bank of Austin. He was accused of embezzlement and was arrested on the same charges in 1896. O. Henry's prolific writing period began in 1902 in the New York City, where he wrote 381 short stories. His writing style was dry, humorous, and, as in his popular story, The Gift of the Magi, often ironically use coincidences and surprise endings. After he was released from prison in 1902, Potter went to the New York City, his home and the setting of the most of his fiction for the remainder of his life. Henry pioneered in picturing the lives of the lower class and middle class New Yorkers. Henry's rich canon of work reflected his wide range of experiences and is distinctive for its witticism, clever wordplay, unexpected twist endings, and his warm characterization of the awkward and difficult situations and the creative ways people find to resolve them. The protagonist, Soapy, the only character whose name we learn in the story, is a homeless, street smart man. We follow him through the New York City where he is trying to escape the harsh winter by getting arrested and taken to Backwell's Island, where he would be assured of housing, given a warm bed, and the satisfaction of his basic needs. O. Henry's languages suggest that Soapy is an intelligent man of refined taste. Now let us see what ways did Soapy try to get arrested. Soapy's first plan was to eat at a fine restaurant and then say he had no money. Soapy thought this would send him to Backwell's prison for 3 months. If he could reach a table in the restaurant, unsuspected success would be his. Soapy believed that above his legs he looked all right, his face was clean, his coat was good enough. The portion of him that would show above the table would raise no doubt in the waiter's mind. A roasted mallet duck, thought Soapy, would be about the thing, with a bottle of wine, and then some cheese, a cup of coffee, and a cigar. $1 for the cigar would be enough. The total would not be so high as to call forth any supreme manifestation of revenge from the cafe's management. And yet, the meat would leave him filled and happy for the journey of his winter refuge. With this plan in mind, Soapy came to a fancy restaurant where only the wealthy people came every evening so he can dine, try to dash, and then get arrested for not being able to pay the bill. The head waiter doesn't even let him through the door when he saw the old broken shoes and the torn clothes that covered his legs and forced him out. Hence, his first attempt was a failure. The next idea that struck in his mind was to break a glass window with a stone. At the corner of 6th Avenue was a shop with a white glass window, bright with electric lights. Soapy picked up a big stone and threw it through the glass. People came running around the corner. A cop was the first among them. Seeing a policeman arriving at the scene, Soapy stood still and he smiled. But the policeman refused to accept Soapy even as a clue. As the cop thought that men who smash windows do not remain to chat with the police, instead, they run away from the crime scene. The cop saw a man further along the street, running. He ran after him, and Soapy, sick at heart, walked slowly away. He had failed 2 times. Across the street was another restaurant of no great pretensions. It catered to large appetites and modest purses. Its crockery and atmosphere were thick, its soup and napery thin. Its food was not so good. Soapy betook himself into this place without challenge. At a table he sat and consumed beefsteak, flapjacks, donuts, and pie. After eating the food there, Soapy said he had no money to pay. Get busy and call a cop, said Soapy, and don't keep a gentleman waiting. No cop for you, said the waiter. He called another waiter. The two waiters pitched Soapy upon his left ear on the hard street outside. He stood up slowly, one part at a time, and beat the dust from his clothes. Prison seemed only a happy dream. The island seemed very far. A cop who was standing near laughed and walked away. Soapy was seized with a sudden fear that some dreadful enchantment had made him immune to arrest. He was in a state of panic, and he tried his luck again. In front of the theater, he started shouting and acting like a drunk man. His voice was as loud as he could make it. He dances, howls, raves, and even goes as far as to disturb the skies. However, the police officer, who speaks in a jargon heavy form of broken English, misidentifies Soapy as a Yale student celebrating a recent football victory over Hartford College and said to a man standing near him, "It's one of those boys. He won't hurt anything. We have orders to let them shout." The cop simply ignores him, stating that he has instructions to let them be. Soapy was quiet. Was no cop going to touch him? He began to think of the island as if it were as far away as a star. He pulled his thin coat around him. The wind was very cold. He then saw a man in a shop buying a newspaper. When he saw his silk umbrella, which he had set by the door on entering, Soapy decided to steal it. Soapy stepped inside, secured the umbrella, and sauntered off with it slowly. The man followed hastily. My umbrella, he said sternly. Oh, is it? Well, why don't you call a policeman? There stands one on the corner. On seeing a cop, the umbrella owner slowed his steps and confessed that he actually found the umbrella in a restaurant and that if it belonged to Soapy, he was free to take it. So he doesn't call over the policeman who was watching them curiously. Depressed Soapy walked towards Madison Square. He stopped at an old church. He became nostalgic and mesmerized by the soft music. He stopped near the iron fence, for he had known it well in the days when his life contained such things as mother, flowers, high hopes, friends, clean thoughts, and clean clothes. At that moment, there was a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. He viewed with rising horror the pit into which he had tumbled. He saw his worthless days, his wrong desires, his dead hopes, and the lost power of his mind. He heard his conscience and reasserted as to pull his strength to become a man of dignity. As he was young, he could change his life. He would find his old purpose in life and follow it. That sweet music has changed him. Tomorrow he would find work. He would find that fur importer who once offered him a job. He would find something. He would be somebody in the world. He would. Soapy felt a hand on his arm. He looked quickly around into the broad face of a cop. What are you doing here? Asked the cop. Nothing, said Soapy. Then come along, said the cop. 3 months prison on Backwell's Island, said the judge to Soapy next morning.